Hello, beautiful people. My name is Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel today. I have book reviews, and this goes through mid-month of August, so books I've been reading recently. But I have had a really great month so far, and I didn't want to wait till the end of the month because that would make for a really long video, and my thoughts are much fresher since I just finished them. So I thought I'd go ahead and share them with you because I've found some really amazing reads. I started off the month really fantastic. I did a buddy read with Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl, and she also has a fantastic review, even comparing this to another similar book that she had read before. I will link that video down below in the description. But we buddy read Britt Marie Was Here by Frederick Backman. So we had both read several books of his and we're both a fan, and I think for the most part we even loved the same ones. So we anticipated that this would be a good thing to read together, and it really was. This is a very lovable character, Britt Marie, who is kind of at a struggle point of life. She is older, her marriage is struggling, her life is kind of not a midlife crisis per se, but just at that kind of point where you have to stop and ponder things, and she is very set in her ways. She has her cutlery drawer very specific, or else she just cannot tolerate. Like, if there is something out of line, she will just tell people and just wait for them to fix it. She's not overly rude about it. She just has to have things the way that she knows that they should be. She's done enough life that she's figured it out, and this is what works for her. And so it is kind of a story of found family in that she is journeying for finding herself, and then comes in contact with many others in a very small town, which I always love the small town. I think Backman does a fantastic job of really explaining the heart and spirit and soul of small towns, which is one of the reasons that Beartown is so powerful for me. I just love that. And it's really funny because I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, which is I think the third largest city in the U.S. So I'm not sure why I resonate so much with small towns, but I do. I just, that. So if you like that kind of story, it's not super high packed on adventure, but it has soccer, and it even has not a talking brat. It stays in the realistic realm, but it's symbolic, and there is actually a rat in the story. So I wondered about that when I saw the cover. It's a very whimsical, fun little cover. So I highly recommend this story if you particularly love character driven. If you have read any Backman and really love him and his writing style, this one's really good, and it's one of his earlier works. So I totally do that. Now, what was the one that my grandmother told me to tell you she was sorry? Maybe there was another one that mentioned this character in the other book, but I didn't realize that because I hadn't read this book yet. So I'll maybe have to go back and recheck that out because I do own all his books. My classic of the month was King Arthur and His Knights, and I had hoped that this was a complete work, but it's not. This is a lovely keepsake collector edition. It has the story, obviously, of King Arthur, and then it goes into 3 of the other characters, Merlin and 2 other of the knights, and gives their backstory. But famous knights such as Sir Galahad and Sir Lancelot, their stories are not in here, so I will have to continue to pursue that. If you're not familiar with it, this is very medieval king knight story, but with a magical element of a magical sword, the Excalibur, which you may have come across in other references of culture. And it is basically that story where the king is discerned by the true king is discerned by the removal of Excalibur from the iron anvil. And so this is that kind of backstory and what happened and what was going on, and it's really great. I felt like the writing was as people were talking like at a Renaissance fair, and it was good for me because I love that. I love that kind of medieval lords and ladies and good day and all that kind of good stuff. So if you're interested in that or want some backstory, particularly going to the roots of some, where other things are based upon, this was really, really enjoyable, and it's a beautiful copy to keep. My nonfiction was Susan Orlean, Rin Tin Tin. I did not know a lot about Rin Tin Tin. It's interesting because I did know of Rin Tin Tin. If somebody had asked me at, I think, pretty much any point in my life since I was a little girl, who's Rin Tin Tin, I would have said a dog and a German Shepherd and maybe a movie star. I knew that he was in some films, but I, to this day, have not seen it. So it did play repeats throughout, I think, the 70s, but he was a miraculous dog who was actually rescued from Europe. He wasn't even an American dog, even though he became an American film star. He was actually rescued from the war over in Europe and brought back, and then that kind of popularized German Shepherds and started getting them more known in the States. And so it's a really vast legacy, and there was a whole legacy of Rin Tin Tins and German Shepherds with the lineage and the breeds and all the kind of side stories that entails, both with the owner and original rescuer of Rin Tin Tin, as well as the dogs and the different puppies, so to speak, that kind of went off in what they did. And it was very interesting. Susan Orlean is a fantastic writer of nonfiction to really help you learn something. And so if you have any interest in animals in the movies, old time films, because this was back in the silent film kind of era, and if you like dogs or dog stories, this is very heartfelt, very just touching, and a very educational, easy to follow along with kind of documentary of Rin Tin Tin, his life and his legacy. Next, I picked up my next Brandon Sanderson, The Alloy of Law. This is the first in the second trilogy of the Mistborn series, same world, and it goes into the time period of guns, horse and buggies, starting up the automobile has just come onto the scene. So it's a different world than Earth, but it's the same kind of time period and the same happenings. This magical world has metals. That is the basis of the magic system. So you can ingest a metal or a couple metals. I think there are 10 total. I'll put a little thing up if I'm wrong. And they will give you a certain ability while you're burning them or utilizing that particular. And so this is kind of like the gunmen for justice, but also having some magical abilities. And the dialogue and the characters are just so amazingly Sanderson. So this is Wax and Wayne, and he has a lot of Wax and Wayne series and stories that kind of came out of this because people love these characters. And I totally get it. By 50 pages in, I was a huge fan of Wax and Wayne. And how cute are those names, and back in the Wild West, and kind of that giving a nod to the lunar cycle and all that. So anyway, totally, you do not have to have read Mistborn to appreciate this, but there are some references back to the first books just in passing about, references to, hey, our history includes this, which happened several hundred years prior to this book, or the setting of this book. So that's that. I look forward to reading the next one sometime. I don't think I own it. I think it's on my wish list still, so I'll have to pick it up soon. I did get into a last summer read, The Unhoneymooners, Christina Lauren. Finally got to this. Never read any Christina Lauren before. This has gone around BookTube. Highly recommended for just a fun romance. And I totally agree. I totally add my endorsement. If you're looking for a beach read, a fun read, a quick read, a palate cleanser, something light and easy, look no further. This is a hate to lovers relationship. It is a groomsman and a bridesmaid who are the only ones that do not get food poisoning at the wedding, so they take over the honeymoon and try to give each other space, but of course end up in each other's way. And it's no big surpriser that it's a romance. So very, very good dialogue, very believable in the sense of rom-coms and unbelievableness that usually generally does happen in those. So if you are looking for that, this delivers. Totally, totally thumbs up. I will even go so far as to say for romances, this falls in the 5-star kind of category of it delivers exactly what it's meant to be. Then I read Jennifer Egan's Visit from the Goon Squad. I had really looked forward to this, didn't know a whole lot about it. It actually is a very raw, gritty, human perspective of several characters that we're following that are very much into the party scene, very much young, coming of age, very much into the music industry, trying to make it, getting caught up in the drugs, alcohol, sex, rock and roll kind of scene. There are very strong ties to certain characters that you are rooting for. The thing that I kind of struggled the most with, that I really think could have been solved with just character or chapter titles, was I had a hard time. Every chapter is told from a different perspective of a different character, and I really struggled a lot trying to figure out which character and which timeline, because it did actually jump around in time just a little bit, and it always took me almost a whole page, if not 2 pages, to really get my brain around who was speaking, what time period it was, what was the relationship that was going on in that chapter. And I found it personally very jarring. So I appreciated the grittiness and the humanness. And I also appreciate there's a sequel, although it came out several years after this one. And because at the end of the book, I really was struggling with what exactly is the point of this story. So I wasn't wanting a lot of information ahead of time or spoilers, and I'm certainly not giving any spoilers, but I might go back and look at some of the other booktubers' critiques and reviews on this, because I think maybe some of it might have been over my head or something, because of my struggling to keep up with certain time periods or characters. I did mention when I did the TBR for it that I really was looking forward to the graphs and the discussions about the more autistic character communicating, and that was very interesting. It was not as key or as monumental to driving the main storyline as I was expecting it to be necessarily, but I really did appreciate that and kind of laughed and kind of had some thought-provoking ponderings from that particular chapter in the book. So overall, very good writing. I appreciated the characters in it, but I'm still left wondering kind of what was the point. The one character in particular that I was really rooting for and hoping to see some character growth, development, conclusions, was left hanging. I'm assuming that's going to be taken care of in the next book, which honestly, I'm not left with that feeling of, oh, I need to rush out and get that book right away and find out. I'm kind of like, if somebody told me the answer, I'd probably be okay with it. So we'll see. Then I just finished Nevermoor, Jessica Townsend. This is a middle grade fantasy book that is 450-ish pages, so it's a chunker, kind of in the Harry Potter length realm, and also that into the magical, there are duplicate worlds that exist. This does not include our normal Earth. This has a completely different world, but then there's a hidden world that's secret on top of that world. And so the beginning, we are following Morrigan, who is 11, and on her 12th birthday, she is a cursed child who will die. But then some strange happenings happen that on her 11th birthday, she is going to be chased to have to end her short little life. And so she is taken up into Nevermoor to try to break the curse and figure out how to survive and what's going on and all of the magical goodness that's going on. How is she connected to this, and what is the reality of some of these characters? And there is a fantastical cat, which I always appreciate cats in stories, so that is very, very much kind of paralleling the Alice in Wonderland Cheshire cat character. But I'm down with that. I'm here for it. I love that. So I will probably continue this series. I'm not sure if it's a trilogy or just a series or how far this goes, but it definitely leaves not concluded, definitely leaves as this is going to be a series and an ongoing story. Things are not wrapped up, and that's okay. I'm going to actually look for it like in secondhand stores and thrift stores, because I don't think I would want to pay full price for this, but I would be interested in carrying on with it. It is obviously easy to read and very whimsical and very PG when you know you don't want a lot of gore, violence, sex-driven kind of stuff, because I have my moods, right? So that is that book. I would recommend that book to preteens and to early readers. Then always kind of a month or every two, I will be reading another Dragonmaid book. This was the third one in Miss Kobayashi's Dragonmaid, and we are following a Earth girl who has saved a dragon who has wandered into our realm, and then she has some dragon-esque friends who also take humanoid forms, and it's just the day-to-day happenings in life. It is the manga that you read this direction and the backwards direction, and it's very clever. And I am far enough in the series that basically it's not going to be a spoiler, because I decided that all of them forevermore are just going to be the different regular aspects of human life, going along, encountering how these characters interact with cooking and cleaning and doing mundane kind of things. But it's funny, the dialogue and the pictures and the anime are just really cute and humorous. And the thing that I like most about it is being able to talk to my children, my two boys, about it, saying, hey, I read another Dragonmaid and here's what's going down, and they know what I'm talking about, and we can have dialogue about it. So every once in a while I'll kind of put them at the id so they don't take up too much time. But I read 3, still enjoying it. I've bought 4. It will show up, if not September, probably October, because it seems like a good thing to read around Halloween with the whole kind of cosplay dragon thing. Maybe I'll read 2 or 3 in October. So those are my reviews so far. I am currently reading Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty, so that will be coming up in the rest of my August reviews. I think those were all the TBR for August, but I will get to 2 or 3 more, so stay tuned for more reviews. Like and subscribe if you are wanting to follow along, not miss anything. I totally appreciate you being here, taking time out of your day. Hope you have some happy reading. Take care, y'all.